Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with you tonight. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We have got a great program here tonight. Lots of different stuff to talk about. Should be a lot of fun. So join us.
American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. We are streaming right now on YouTube. We are streaming right now on Rockfin. We are streaming right now on Facebook. We are streaming right now. Actually, afterwards, this will get uploaded to the Rumble. This will get uploaded to Odyssey. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. And we have a lot of things to talk about here tonight. Quite a few things to talk about here tonight. Well, anyway, before I get into it, for those of you who may not be familiar, the way we do things on these streams is I give my opening remarks. And my opening remarks are usually followed at that point by the roll call, where we call out everyone, names and locations. We find out who's on the other side of the camera, who is watching. And it's quite a diverse audience that we have here. Many people in many different corners of the world. It's really awesome. And then after that, I answer super chat questions for the rest of the night. So if there's something that you would like me to speak about in the second half of the program tonight, the best thing to do would be to send me a super chat and I will speak about it. I will do my best to give you an answer in the second half of our show. So send me a super chat and I will make a point of doing my best to give you an answer. May not be the answer that you're looking for, but I will give you an answer. So that's the way we roll. First, the opening remarks. Second, the roll call. Third, the super chats get answered. And the second half of our show gets very exciting sometimes because people ask me all kinds of crazy stuff. They ask me about my knowledge. They ask me about my opinion of world events. They ask me about all kinds of different things. And it's pretty fun, pretty fun. So we got a lot of clips I'm going to show tonight, and I'm going to jump right into the opening remarks because there are a lot of things happening right now that are a culmination of explaining to all of you what I have been explaining to you all for the past few years. I have been explaining to you all that the so-called left, the synthetic left, is becoming the main danger. I've explained to you all that those of us who are anti-imperialist need to get out of the movement to the masses. I have explained to you all that the United States is heading towards a low-wage police state. I've explained to you all that we need to unite with all who can be united and build an anti-monopoly coalition. I've explained to you all this is all rooted in the problem of overproduction. I've explained to you all kinds of different things about all kinds of different issues. And tonight, I think we could just go over a number of different things and a number of different comments and things that have happened that can show you where we're at. First thing is the case that I continue to raise awareness about, the Uhuru movement. These are a group of Black revolutionary activists who had their homes raided by the FBI in August. Their homes were raided by the FBI. And now they have been indicted by the U.S. government. They are facing 10 years in prison for their anti-war activism, for their anti-imperialism. The indictment from the U.S. government lists the fact that they went on some Zoom calls, the fact that they sent on emails, the fact that they've spoken up in support of Russia. They've accused them of sowing discord and spreading Russian propaganda. And the Center for Political Innovation, my organization, we have been on the forefront of defending the Uhuru organization from this persecution. And we have been so much in the forefront of doing so that we've actually been honored by the Uhuru movement. On their recent Zoom call, this is what they had to say about the Center for Political Innovation. This is on the official Uhuru movement, African People's Socialist Party Zoom call, web conference. This is what they had to say about our organization.
A shout out and revolutionary salute to John, along with Caleb and the rest of the Center for Political Innovation for your consistent support, including speaking out, demonstrating, donating, and encouraging others to donate at every opportunity. Speaking of which, right at this moment, you can go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate to make your contribution.
Yeah. They gave a special shout out to John, one of our beloved members at the Center for Political Innovation, for his work to support the Uhuru movement. And they gave a shout out to our organization overall. And let me note that right after they were raided, this happened. And I will pull up the video file. We had our conference in Chicago. Our conference was all scheduled. Garland Nixon was coming. Tara Reid was coming, and then about a week before our conference, they got raided. We immediately decided we absolutely needed to support the Uhuru movement. So they came and spoke at our conference in Chicago.
Put forward this vision of rebuilding America with popular power, breaking out of their globalist financial system. We must oppose all political repression. The deep state is moving in on too many people right now, threatening their rights. And that is why we absolutely condemn the horrendous FBI raids carried out against the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru House, and Chairman O'Malley. Here today to show that we are not afraid, we are not intimidated, and that we offer nothing but unequivocal full support and solidarity to them while they're under attack. Please stand up, comrades. Come on the stage, please. And civil rights activists as agents of Russia is one of the dirtiest tricks of the U.S. deep state. They called Martin Luther King Jr. a Soviet agent. They called the Nation of Islam foreign agents. And we are here today to say that black people have the right to organize, fight for their rights however they choose, and that the U.S. government has no right to call them Russian agents or repress them in any way.
That's our position. We, from the beginning, from the moments those raids happened, we came to the side of the Uhuru movement. We've defended the Uhuru movement. We've done so consistently. Now, I want to mention there's many more aspects of this that we have to get into, right? So that's our role. We have been thanked by the Uhuru movement for our consistent support in terms of donations, financially, in terms of raising awareness about their case. They've come to our events. And who else spoke at our conference in Chicago? None other than Tara Reid, the woman who was sexually assaulted by Joe Biden. And Tara Reid, recently, she's been speaking. She now works with Kim Iverson. She arranged for Kim Iverson to show and bring Chairman O'Malley onto the show of Kim Iverson. And in addition to that, recently, this Saturday, Tara Reade spoke at an event called by Diane Sayre. And this is what Tara Reade said about the case.
Really horrible has recently just happened. I don't know if you're aware. About a year ago, I met some people from the Uhuru movement, the Black Socialist Party. And I heard about them because in last year, their homes were raided in Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, and in St. Petersburg, Florida. I reached out to them and talked with them, and I texted some of the media people I knew and said, look, independent media, because legacy media doesn't talk to me. But anyway, that's a different story. But so I reached out to my independent media friends and I said, this is a canary in the coal mine of trying to silence our First Amendment right of speech. They raided Chairman O'Malley's home. He's 80 years old. He was sitting at the breakfast table with his wife discussing their midwifery program. And many of you in this room might not even agree with the Uhuru Group's movement or their stance, their socialist belief system, but that doesn't matter. This is America, and this is where we're supposed to be able to express these views. They're a nonviolent group, but remarkably, the FBI entered Chairman O'Malley's home with drones, armored tanks, and he had the red dots all over him as he came out. They accused him of being an agent of Russia. Chairman O'Malley loudly said publicly, I've been an activist for 50 years. No country tells me what to do. And he was right. No country did. Chairman O'Malley and his group have been raising up for decades their belief system and trying to get justice for their communities that are impoverished and have dealt with systemic racism. Well, just recently, they've been indicted by the DOJ. And the remarkable thing, if you go online and read that indictment, one of the things they're accusing them of, sowing discord. Now, how many of you in this room are sowing discord? You're all gonna be raided. I joke, but my heart is heavy because Chairman O'Malley is 80 years old. And they're gonna cage him and lock him up for up to a decade, accusing him of being a Russian agent, and he's not. And I'm emotional about this because every single one of us in this room is losing our fundamental constitutional right to freedom of speech. And Chairman O'Malley and his group deserve to be lifted. So those of you that can on social media, please read independently. Don't just read the smears, because right now legacy media is just trying to make them sound like they are agents of Russia when they're not. So it's up to us to get the truth out there. To his credit, Tucker Carlson recently had him on the show. I'm a producer on the Kim Iverson show. She recently had the Chairman O'Malley before the indictment, and then after, she's been discussing it. So we do have people in this space, INN, Independent News Network, the Schiller Institute, and other people that are friends of the constitutional right for freedom of speech are trying to raise this up. So we have the existential threat of endless wars and nuclear annihilation facing us head on. And those of us that are speaking against it are being targeted by a weaponized DOJ. That weaponization has occurred by the Biden and Obama administration. The thing about the Uhuru Group that you might not know is that they disrupted, much like Jose. Where's Jose? There you go, Jose. Give him a big hand. He's awesome. He's our disruptor too. Well, they disrupted Obama back in the day at a key district in Florida, and the Obama and Biden administration never forgot it, did they? And they've been a target ever since. And so look at them now. They're now facing prison. This is wrong. Now, I'm politically independent. As you know, I used to be a Democrat. I left the party. I don't know if they've noticed, but I have. And I will never vote Democrat again. And while I appreciate some of the people that are trying to say they're anti-war within the Democratic Party, it's right now so rife with corruption and such a tool of the military-industrial complex. It needs to be upended before there can be any systemic change.
So that's who's supporting the Uhuru movement right now. Me, Center for Political Innovation, Lyndon LaRouche and the LaRouche Organization, Tara Reid, Kim Iverson. But who else? Who else has spoken up in support of the Uhuru movement? I'm just going to show you. These are just facts. Take them or leave them. Who else has spoken up in support of the Uhuru movement?
Started at policy review, the Soviet Union collapsed.
This is Tucker Carlson speaking at the Heritage Foundation,
which was an amazing
on Saturday. He was fired on Monday.
Amazing thing. The coup against Gorbachev in the third week of August 1991 was the week I started at Heritage. And in retrospect, of course, you never appreciate the significance of things as they happen to you. You can't really know what the movie's about until it ends. But at the time, we didn't really appreciate how, well, two things. One, our entire political orientation was based on this war between the United States and the Soviet Union, this Cold War, but very much a war. And every part of our politics, as you well remember, those of you my age and older remember, every part of our politics revolved around that central conflict. That's the first lesson of history. You know, nothing is permanent except our own demise and God. But we didn't kind of get that. You know, if you told me then that this week the Department of Justice would have indicted a group of people I don't agree with, by the way, on a lot of different issues, Black nationalist socialists from Florida, okay, kind of not my demographic, but would have indicted them for criticizing the US position, the Biden administration's position on the war in Ukraine, and charged them with felonies for which they're each facing 10 years in prison. If you told me that could happen here, I would have laughed at you. No, we have a First Amendment. That can't happen here, but it has, that and a lot of other things, which are gravely unsettling, actually, and people who were rooted in the Cold War story and the reality of the Cold War, again, my age, 53, kind of know where that goes.
So Tucker Carlson spoke up in support of the Uhuru movement. And so did Glenn Beck, I might add. So did Glenn Greenwald. So did a number of journalists. So did a number of people that spoke up in support of the Uhuru movement. CPI, yes, yeah, got it. Yes, wrote it down. Thank you. And, you know, CPI, we've spoken up in support of the Uhuru movement. And Tara Reid has spoken up in support of the Uhuru movement. Kim Iverson has spoken up. Jimmy Dore has spoken up in support of the Uhuru movement. Aaron Mate, Matt Taibbi, all these people have spoken up in support of the Uhuru movement. Tucker Carlson even spoke up in support of the Uhuru movement. And now Tucker Carlson just lost his show on Fox News. It's been removed. And if you haven't noticed, there are certain forces that are now all celebrating Tucker Carlson losing his show. I mean, take a look at social media. There have been certain forces that are overwhelmingly celebrating the fact that Tucker Carlson has lost his show on Fox. And they are saying things like, oh, he's right wing. Oh, he's a fascist. Oh, he's not a real supporter of, he's not a real anti-imperialist, etc. Now, folks, I want to tell you about one place that all the people who seem to be supporting the firing of Tucker Carlson seem to be connected to. I'm just going to put it up here on the screen. There's a building in New York City. And it seems like all the people that are really happy that Tucker Carlson, the one voice on mainstream media that spoke up for Julian Assange, the one voice on mainstream media that spoke up in support of the Uhuru movement, the one voice on mainstream media that spoke up about the danger of a new world war, the one voice that said maybe we shouldn't be sending weapons to Ukraine, the one dissident voice in American mainstream media just got removed. And if you look at all the people on social media that are supposed to be anti-war, who somehow think this is a good thing and are celebrating it, one way or another, they all connect to this place, the People's Forum. Now, this is a building in New York City. It's an office, Midtown Manhattan. Very interesting. The People's Forum opened up. I've been there a few times. You know, they've had events there in support of Venezuela. They have Vijay Prashad speak there a lot. You know, they're just known to be this leftist space. When the Venezuelan foreign minister was visiting, he was visiting New York City. He came there and we were invited. There was a reception. I got to shake hands with the Venezuelan foreign minister there, the People's Forum. But it seems like all the people that are celebrating the Uhuru movement being indicted, calling them a cult, all the people that are celebrating Tucker Carlson losing his show, all the people who called Jimmy Dore a fascist, all the people that, no matter what they say about Cuba or China or Venezuela, they always find some way to get it back to supporting the Stop Trump movement. All of them seem connected to this place called the People's Forum. All of them. Very interesting, isn't it? The People's Forum. And there are certain communist groups that are always doing stuff at the People's Forum. The Party of Socialism and Liberation, the Communist Party USA, the Workers' World Party, Struggle, La Lucha, all these communist groups are always doing stuff at the People's Forum. But you know, CPI has never been welcome at the People's Forum. I don't know why. Long before we were even CPI, when we were Students and Youth for a New America, if we ever tried to pass out leaflets there or anything, they would always stop us. We could never get a reason why. They would give us a phone number, say, well, if you want a leaflet here, you have to talk to this guy. They'd give us a phone number, and that phone number didn't work. For some reason, we've never been welcome there. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. You know, long before I was a big deal on the internet and BreadTube all went after me, long before I was accused of every nasty name in the world, long before any of this, whenever anyone associated with our organization went to the People's Forum, they were told they couldn't pass stuff out. We were basically told we're not welcome. And they could never really give us a clear reason why, but for some reason, anyone who's ever been associated with Students and Youth for a New America, the Center for Political Innovation, every time we go there and try to do anything, they're hostile to us. Meanwhile, everyone who's associated with the People's Forum, everyone who's associated with the People's Forum is celebrating Tucker Carlson getting fired. Everyone who's associated with the People's Forum is all about how Trump is a fascist. We got to stop Donald Trump. We got to stop Trump. Trump is a fascist. We got to stop Trump. We got to support wokeism. Very interesting, isn't it? Very, 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 very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Now, folks, I want to make you aware of something else. Something else you should probably be aware of. Right? The date, June 30th, 2019, is a very important day in world history. Do you know why? You know why June 30th, is a very important day in world history? You know why? June 30th, 2019 is the day that this happened. I'll put it on the screen. June 30th, 2019. Hold on. June 30th, 2019 is the day that something very important happened. Something very important happened on June 30th, 2019. This is what happened. On June 30th, 2019, the first sitting U.S. president, who is currently the president of the United States, ever to visit North Korea, went to North Korea. Donald Trump crossed the demilitarized zone and he visited the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And this happened. This is in the DMZ, the big space between North and South Korea. Donald Trump became the first president in U.S. history to cross the DMZ. He shook hands with Kim Jong-un, and it looked like negotiations toward U.S. troops leaving South Korea and the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula were starting to happen. This was a big moment in American history. No other sitting U.S. president had ever visited North Korea. Donald Trump did it. This was a really, really big deal. And Jim Rogers, a billionaire investor, a former friend of George Soros who had a falling out, he supported the move because he said that North Korea could become an economic powerhouse because it could join the Trans-Siberian Railway. It could join the Belt and Road Initiative, the Belt and Road from China. There was a lot of money to be made. And there were a number of lower-level capitalists who thought this was a good move, who supported Donald Trump in doing this. It was a great moment. A very, very great moment. And I'll tell you this much. This is important. I was a member of the Workers' World Party before Donald Trump was elected. And in the Workers' World Party, the woman who handled our relations with North Korea was this woman. This woman, her name is Deirdre Griswold. And there were a couple times I went with her to receptions that were held at the North Korean mission to the United Nations. And she was the one who handled the Workers' World Party's relations with North Korea, Deirdre Griswold. Right? Deirdre Griswold is now in an old folks' home, not a spring chicken, not a young person, but she was politically active at the time. And she was the one who arranged we would bring delegations to go to the UN mission of People's Korea. It was Deirdre. And you'll recall Deirdre Griswold even went on a certain television program. Deirdre Griswold was invited to go on Tucker Carlson's program. You'll remember. Tucker Carlson had Deirdre Griswold on his show to talk about People's Korea. I can actually show this to you. I might actually show you the clip. I have to start downloading the clip. I didn't prepare that clip, but I'll actually show it to you. Deirdre Griswold, a member of the Workers' World Party, who was in it when I was in it, she went on Tucker Carlson's show. Support People's Korea. Here, I'm going to start uploading the clip. I'll start downloading the clip. But I'll show it to you. right? We'll show that a little bit later in the broadcast because we got to start the download now. I didn't have that one prepared. I actually just remembered that while I was talking about it. That's kind of relevant to what we're talking about. Deirdre Griswold went on Tucker Carlson's show to talk about peace on the Korean Peninsula and supporting North Korea. Worth mentioning. But regardless, right before the 2016 elections, Deirdre Griswold, who frequently communicated with the North Koreans, told the Workers' World Party members that North Korea thought Trump was the better candidate. North Korea thought that Donald Trump was the better candidate, that Donald Trump was more supportive of North Korea and more willing to negotiate with North Korea than Hillary Clinton was. And Deirdre Griswold made clear that while the Cubans thought that Obama was better, the North Koreans thought that Trump was better. That's what she said. And then who did we have? Who had Deirdre Griswold on his show? Who was it? Here we go. Let's skip ahead.
Of moving toward
hate America. So you're a longtime communist. You're a longtime supporter of the DPRK. You visited at the invitation of the government. You think its leaders are great. When you see CNN and Reuters agreeing with you that its leaders are great, that must validate you. I mean, you must cheer as you watch the Olympic coverage.
I've been to both North Korea and South Korea, and I'm on this program because I want to talk to the people who watch your show and make a serious point that we're in the process of moving towards a nuclear war. And they have never experienced that, but the Korean people know very much what war is like, and they're not for it. And the people of South Korea don't want war any more than the people of North Korea do. And they showed that at the Olympics when in the opening ceremonies, when they cheered with great joy the fact that the North and the South were marching together.
So since you've been to both countries, I'm just wondering, so one is obviously the world's last Stalinist regime. It's pretty rigidly Marxist. That's North Korea. South Korea is floridly capitalist. It's a market-based economy, which, of course, you reject. Which country would you rather live in personally?
I won't try to answer and debate you on everything you've said. This is
I'm
your
not
show.
debating it. No, that's a sincere.
Hour.
Well, that's
I
a
only
sincere
have a
question.
couple of minutes, but what I want to talk about.
You're not going to answer the question.
What I want to talk about is what I think is really of importance to the people of this country. That is that there's a group in Washington that really wants to push for a war. The Korean people don't want it. People here don't want a war, but they don't know what a war is like. They think you just push a button somewhere.
Well, but hold on. Let me just say that I've never said this to a communist before, but I actually agree with you. I don't want a war in Korea.
I've never said this to a communist before, but I actually agree with you. I don't want a war in Korea.
And I think there are people in Washington who are pushing for it. I think you're absolutely right there.
And I do think there are people in Washington who are pushing for it, and I think you're absolutely right there. That happened. Now, Tucker sounded a lot different back in those days. That may not be a complete fair representation. He was pretty hostile to North Korea in that interview, but even then, he had a pro-North Korean communist, Deirdre Griswold, on his show to defend North Korea, and he said he agreed with her. And he defended the Uhuru movement. And Deirdre Griswold told the Workers' World Party that the Koreans had communicated that they thought Trump was the better candidate for them, but Trump was more willing to negotiate with them. And then the North Koreans thought Trump was the better candidate. And then Donald Trump went to North Korea. And there was a historic handshake. The first sitting American president to cross the DMZ and go into North Korea was Donald Trump. This happened. This happened. You can't deny that it happened. Well, actually, somebody does deny that it happened, but this happened. June 30th, 2019, this happened. After Tucker had Deirdre Griswold on her show, after Deirdre Griswold told the Workers' World Party that Trump was the better candidate, who was more sympathetic to them. And now Tucker Carlson has lost his show on Fox News. And now all kinds of people associated with something called the People's Forum are cheering that he lost his show because he's a big fat racist. Now, I know this sounds a little garbled. This probably sounds a little bit jumbled. Right? And this may be a little bit hard to follow. There's a lot of different factors here. Right? There's a lot of different forces involved in all of this. I'm just going to tell you what we've been over so far in case you're just joining the program. 1, the Uhuru movement, a group of black revolutionary activists, have been indicted by the American government and are facing 10 years in prison for allegedly being Russian agents. 2, the Center for Political Innovation has been personally honored and thanked by the Uhuru movement for all of the hard work we have done to support them. They have come to our conferences. We have raised money. We have done everything we can to highlight their case and to support them. 3, Tucker Carlson, the radio host, or the TV host, he also spoke up in support of the Uhuru movement, and he lost his show. 4, Tara Reid, the rape victim of Joe Biden, who was sexually assaulted and raped by Joe Biden, she has spoken up in support of the Uhuru movement. 4, something called the People's Forum in New York City, this building that is occupied by members of CPUSA and members of PSL and members of certain various groups, they're all celebrating that Tucker Carlson lost his show. 4, Deirdre Griswold said that the North Koreans said Trump was the better candidate who was more willing to negotiate with them. 5, Tucker Carlson even had Deirdre Griswold on his show and said that while he didn't support North Korea, he agreed with her about better relations. Well, this all sounds like a clusterfuck. I'm giving you all kinds of different points. But I'm getting to something very, very important. Getting to something quite important here. Now, I have to show you all something else. Show you something else. Right? Yet another picture. Again, here's something important. The Center for Political Innovation. We support the talks on the Korean Peninsula. And so for our conference that we just had in Washington, D.C., we made this banner. All right? There's Sam Bismuth and Timoshenko and Lumpia Logic. That's us right in front of the White House. During our conference, we went and we had a speak out at the White House. What does our banner say? It says, "Finish what Trump started. Peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula." And it has a picture of Donald Trump shaking hands with Kim Jong-un. And that is us saying that we want what would be good for the United States in terms of bringing the troops home and improving economic relations, bringing in a new wave of investment and jobs, what would be good for North Korea in terms of bringing them into the world economy, what would be good for South Korea in terms of having the U.S. troops leave, in terms of what would be good for Russia in terms of, having not a nuclear crisis on its border, in terms of what would be good for China. The whole world would benefit if the process that Donald Trump started of reconciliation between the United States and North Korea if that process continued. So we made this special banner that we had at our conference. And we have reached out to a number of different Korean American forces, Republicans, people that support Tulsi Gabbard. We want to build a movement for peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. And we've reached out to many different organizations about the fact that we want to build a movement for peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. And at this point, it's obvious that the people who want that are on the Republican side. Tulsi Gabbard is a huge supporter of negotiations and continuing the negotiations. Donald Trump advocates continuing the negotiations. The reason that what Donald Trump started and that what happened on June 30th, 2019 stopped is because of John Bolton, the neocon, who endorsed Joe Biden in the last election and turned against the Trump administration. When Trump wouldn't let him overthrow Venezuela like he wanted, when Trump went after wrecking the Korea negotiations, John Bolton left the Trump administration and he campaigned for Biden in 2016 or in 2020. So this is our message. Finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula, picture of the great historic handshake. So keep all of this in mind. This has been a big effort that we've pushed in CPI. Every opportunity we get, we call for peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We understand what the Koreans understand, which is that Donald Trump is more likely to continue the process and wants to continue the process. Meanwhile, it is the Democrats who do not. We understand that Tucker Carlson was more in support of the process, and Tucker Carlson is more in support of the Uhuru movement, and Tucker Carlson is more anti-war. We get this. And now, based on that, I want to clue you all in on something that just happened earlier. It happened earlier today, but, it started last week. So last week, I found out that on Saturday, there was going to be a demonstration by a Korean American organization to call for peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. And since this is one of the major efforts of the Center for Political Innovation, we decided to reach out to the organizers and politely ask if we could join the demonstration, if we could send representatives of CPI to the demonstration. And we sent a nice email, and the organization that is having this rally at the United Nations, the organization just so happens to be a group that is tied in with these people, right? They're tied in with the People's Forum, a group of Korean Americans called Noditol that are tied in with the People's Forum and closely connected to the Party of Socialism and Liberation, the PSL. But, the People's Forum has always been hostile to us. They've never let us hand out our leaflets there. They somehow always find a way to link what they're doing to the Stop Trump movement. They always somehow find some way to celebrate things like Tucker Carlson getting fired. They always call people racist and homophobic and transphobic. They're hostile to the LaRouche people. They're hostile to all real anti-war forces. But you know what? The call for their rally was a call for peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. So we reached out to the organizers and politely asked if we could attend the rally as people that are supporters of the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We sent them a picture of our banner. We were nothing but polite. And now I want to show you the response I got from Betsy Yoon, the organizer of the rally. This is the response that I got. I'm going to put it on the screen. Everyone can see it. This is the response that I got. Hi, Caleb. Thanks for reaching out. I spoke with my organization, and ultimately, we don't feel comfortable with having CPI attend due to the sexual abuse allegations around CPI and yourself. In addition, we would disagree with characterizing the peace negotiations as something that Donald Trump started. And we feel it's not aligned with the message of our 4/29 rally. Wow. Damn. You know, I mean, I don't know what gossip about consensual things that happened between me and one person have to do with this rally. I really don't. I really don't know what gossip about me and consensual things that happened with one person have to do with this rally. But I do find it interesting that somehow, based on that, based on the fact that something consensual happened with me between one person, they don't feel like I could be there. Like, she's basically saying that if people from my organization, not even me, I didn't even say I was going, but if people from our organization went there, we wouldn't be able to stop ourselves from sexually molesting all the people at the rally. She basically called every member of CPI a sexual predator in that email. That's what she said. Now, she may have said it in a roundabout way, but that's what she said. She basically said that every member of our organization is a sexual predator, that we wouldn't be able to go to the rally. Like, we would get there, and as soon as we got there, we'd be grabbing every person's ass and you know, grabbing every person in the groin. That's basically what she said. That because of some internet gossip, she said, no, we can't have you there. We're not comfortable with you there because of that. So she basically accused our entire organization of being sexual predators because of some stupid internet gossip about some consensual things that happened with one person. That's already been debunked. But I felt, you know, in response to this, I had to give Betsy a response, right? And so this is what I sent back to Betsy. This is what I sent back to Betsy. I'll put it on the screen. This is what I sent back to Betsy. I sent back to her, Betsy, thanks for clarifying that your organization is more concerned about internet cancel culture and opposing Trump than actually bringing peace to the Korean Peninsula. I will be sure to make this clear to all of my associates and allies, both domestically and internationally. Don't worry. You can be sure that none of our resources will be directed toward helping your organization's efforts, and you can remain pure. Best, Caleb. That was my response. But how is it exactly that they don't agree that Donald Trump did this? I mean, is it the position of this no to tall organization that this is an actor? Is this like a body double? Is that their position? Is it their position that Deirdre Griswold wasn't telling people that the North Koreans thought Trump was more willing to negotiate? Is it the position of the no to tall organization that Tucker Carlson did not have Deirdre Griswold on his program and say he agreed with her? Is it the position of the no to tall organization that, well, I could go on. Very interesting, isn't it? Personally, I think that everyone should email Betsy Yoon right now, and I will drop her email in the chat. And I think we should all give her a piece of our minds, because basically what she revealed is that her organization, and I'm really glad that she emailed me back, and I'm really glad that she gave it to me in writing, because this is really important. And this is what I've been trying to tell all of you for so long. No to Tall doesn't actually want peace on the Korean Peninsula. No to Tall and the People's Forum, they work for the Democrats. Send her an email. Just give her your thoughts. They work for the Democratic Party. And their job is to rally Korean Americans or other people that might be supportive of North Korea to support the Democrats. That is what their job is. Send her an email, please. Please, give her a piece of your mind. And that strategy might have made some sense during the Cold War. The Democrats were more willing to negotiate back then. But now, in the age of this, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And for her to say in the email that the position of her organization is that this didn't happen, that's just downright absurd. Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, they want peace on the Korean Peninsula. Meanwhile, it's the Democrats who don't. It's John Bolton, who switched sides and now supports the Democrats, who wrecked this process. Meanwhile, you'll notice that Tucker Carlson just got taken off the air for advocating peace with Russia, for sticking up for Julian Assange, and all the people connected with the place that facilitates the activism of No to Tall and other Korean American organizations, all the people connected with it are all celebrating Tucker Carlson getting taken off the air. And they're always finding a way to link whatever anti-war protests happened somehow to the Stop Trump protest movement. Very interesting, isn't it? Very, very interesting. But it gets even more interesting, because what is the main political group that operates out of the People's Forum? What's it called? What is it called? The main political organization that operates out of the People's Forum. It's called the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the PSL. So I decided, just on a whim, I don't know. I don't know these things. I thought, just to see, since we're doing this, since we're just checking things out here, I decided to Google the phrase Party of Socialism and Liberation and sexual abuse, just to see what might come up. I'm going to show you a few things that come up. All right? I just decided to Google it. A brief criticism of the PSL against the Party of Socialism and Liberation. Party for Socialism and Liberation members, me too. Oh, but it gets better. Here's another thing that came up. If you scroll a little bit further down. This is great. Take a look at this one. PSL, a cult of rapists and abusers. Interesting, huh? A cult of rapists and abusers? Now, who is the author of that statement accusing the PSL of being a cult of rapists and abusers? Why, it's none other than the Black Hammer Party. Does the name Black Hammer Party sound familiar? Well, it should. Because the 4 activists who've been indicted by the American government, 3 of them are part of the Uhuru movement, and 1 of them is the founder of the Black Hammer Party. Now, is this starting to make any sense to you all? Because it should. This should really make sense. The Black Hammer Party and the 4 activists who got supported by Tucker Carlson and are being indicted right now has called out the PSL. But yet, and I can show you there's even more. Oh, there's more. Oh, there's so much more. Right? Here, I'll show you. This is great. This is what I found about the PSL. Right? And again, I'm not even saying any of this is true. People make up shit on the internet just like they made up shit about me. Right? I'm not saying any of this is necessarily true or justified. I'm just saying it's out there. And if it being out there about me, means something, then it being out there about somebody else should mean something too. I mean, if you're going to base whether or not you'll work with someone to stop a war on internet rumors, maybe you ought to do it all around. But yeah, this is great. This is great. Let me show you this one. So this is a Quora question, right? Hi, I've seen that there's been a lot of communists who accuse the PSL of having a culture of misogyny and it's revisionist, right? This is a significant, important current, the sexual assault, the sexual faction. There's loads of allegations of PSL members sexually assaulting people. There's loads of allegations of PSL members who have been inappropriate sexually. But I have the feeling that Betsy's totally fine with PSL people coming to her upcoming rally. She's totally fine with it. Why? Because PSL are Democrats. Are you starting to understand what I'm getting at here tonight? Now, I know this is all complicated. I'm drawing from different places. But what you need to understand, and please give her a piece of your mind. Give her a piece of your mind. This is utterly ridiculous. This is utterly ridiculous. Give her a piece of your mind. There are 2 sides right now in the United States. There is one side that is trying to silence dissent on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media, and on mainstream media. There is one side that celebrated Tucker Carlson getting fired. There's one side that was outraged about it. There's one side that supports jailing Julian Assange, and there's one side that's outraged about it. There is one side that supports sending huge amounts of weapons to Ukraine, and one side that opposes it. And the most sinister thing is that there is a group of people, and I've been telling you all about this for years. There is a group of people who claim to be on one side, but they are really on the other. And there is a group of people whose job it is to attach anti-war Americans to the pro-war side. There is a group of people whose job it is to muddy the waters and confuse everyone, to somehow get people to think, that you can be in favor of getting Tucker Carlson, the only voice critical of the war drive, banned from television and still be anti-war and still be anti-imperialist or still support North Korea. Betsy Yoon doesn't really support North Korea. if she did, she would be saying what we say. People who support North Korea talk this way because this is what North Korea is saying. People who actually support North Korea say that. That has been the position of North Korea. They understand that the forces aligned with Donald Trump are more willing to negotiate with them. They have felt that way since before Donald Trump was elected, and they still feel that way. That is what the forces that are sympathetic to negotiating with North Korea and want peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula think. This is what they think. This is what North Korea orients its allies around the world to believe. This is what North Korea wants people to understand. The North Koreans are smart enough to know who was the president when this happened. However, there is a group of people whose job it is to confuse people, to muddy the waters. There's a group of very dangerous, sinister people whose job it is to try and make people who want peace with North Korea cheer for getting Tucker Carlson banned from television. And there's a group of people whose job it is to try and get people to support the Uhuru movement being indicted. There is a group of people who wave the red flag to oppose the red flag. There is a group of people who preach socialism but practice fascism. There is a group of very evil people whose job it is to try and manipulate anti-war people into supporting the more pro-war faction. And we need to make this abundantly clear. No Natal does not want to support the Korean people. They want to support the Democrats. That's what they made abundantly clear. They're happy to work with PSL despite all kinds of crazy sexual allegations against them. They accused our entire organization of being sexual predators. And on top of that, they claimed that somehow Donald Trump was not the first president to visit the Korean Peninsula. If you can't understand how evil it would be, anyone can see that if you want peace on the Korean Peninsula, you shouldn't be joining the Stop Trump movement. You shouldn't be celebrating Tucker Carlson getting fired. And if anything, you shouldn't be excluding and trying to ban and demonize me. But yet, that is what these people are doing. That's what they're doing. They are more interested in fighting Donald Trump than they are in fighting U.S. imperialism. They are more interested in fighting against the right wing than they are in stopping the wars. This is a sinister, evil operation. And Ben Norton does the same thing. Ben Norton is in Nicaragua. I will never forget the night that Ben Norton was in Nicaragua. He's sitting in Nicaragua, the country that has the strictest anti-abortion laws in the world. It's a socialist country, but it has the strictest anti-abortion laws of any country in the world. And from Nicaragua, Ben Norton tweets out that anyone who doesn't want to stop the overturning of Roe versus Wade is a clerical fascist and is a Nazi. How do you square that hole? He's literally in a socialist country that has some of the strictest anti-abortion laws in the world, but yet he says that any American who doesn't believe in abortion or wants abortion to be illegal can't be welcome, shouldn't be allowed in left-wing spaces. Ask yourself what side Ben Norton is on. How does that make any sense? Well, it makes sense if you understand that Ben Norton's job isn't really to support Nicaragua. Ben Norton's job is to confuse people in Nicaragua and Americans who might be sympathetic to Nicaragua into supporting the Democratic Party. That's what Ben Norton's job is. And there's a whole layer of people like this. Luna Oy, Danny Haifong, the same group of people that boycotted and did everything they could to stop the biggest anti-war protest in the last 20 years. 13,000 people went to the Rage Against the War Machine rally in Washington, D.C. These people, not only did they not support it, they did everything they could to condemn it. They called it a Nazi rally. They called it a right-wing terrorist gathering. They accused it of every evil thing in the world. They called it a pedophile rally. A real anti-war rally that included Republicans, conservatives, leftists. They did everything they could to stop it. And then they had their little rally a month later, March 18th. And it was less than 1,000 people. Less than 1,000 people. Think about this. Less than 1,000 people, but it was all about trans rights. It was all about everyone's a racist, a sexist, and homophobe. They chanted, "How do you spell racist? M-A-T-O." If you looked at the rally, the Rage Against the War Machine, you saw American flags, you saw conservatives, you saw libertarians, you saw leftists, all marching together because they didn't want World War III. Very diverse crowd of people. And what you saw at the tiny little rally that happened on March 18th was a group of smelly leftists who need to take a shower communicating how much they hate America and how much America is an evil country. That was the message of the rally. Tucker talked Trump out of bombing Iran. Ben talked people out of attending Rage Against the War Machine. This is what you need to understand. Everything that I have said on these streams has gotten 10 times truer since I started coming on here. If you go back. This is stream number 507. We've been doing this for years. And when I started, I didn't have anywhere near the anger. I started talking about the synthetic left. I started talking about the danger of war. I started talking about socialism with American characteristics. But everything that I said has gotten to be 10 times truer since these broadcasts started. And you know who is a great voice to explain this? You know who puts this very, very well? It's this woman, Jyoti Brar, of the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist. She is awesome. She was a keynote speaker at our rally, at our event in Washington, D.C. She flew in all the way from the United Kingdom. She gave a great presentation, and she has actually been selected by, the People's Democratic Party, which is the South Korean Communist Party that is barely legal. It operates in exile in France. They selected her. They selected Jyoti Brar to be the leader of the World Anti-Imperialist Platform. And she just had an amazing conversation with Garland Nixon. Amazing conversation with Garland Nixon. And in that conversation, she made this point. Go and check out Jyoti Brar. She gets it. And the North Koreans love Jyoti Brar. She's been to North Korea a number of times. And now she's the head of the World Anti-Imperialist Platform, which is an anti-imperialist coalition of communist parties that have refused to buy into the plague on both your houses and say that Russia and China and People's Korea are right and U.S. imperialism is wrong. This is just a bit of her recent conversation with Garland Nixon. I would like you to hear.
And of course, the fact that they have to do this exposes entirely their weakness and their hypocrisy. Because they are this doublespeak. Okay, they've got this huge media of network of media where they don't get questioned and they're not called out for their hypocrisy. But people aren't stupid. There's a reason we're all so cynical about the media and politicians these days. It's because there are so many holes in the stories and the narratives they build for us. You've talked really eloquently about that, Garland, that they're constantly presenting us with contradictions.
Yes. Something else I think that is important if you're going to have a discussion about imperialism. Again, we're talking with Jyoti Brar. She is here to today particularly represent the World Anti-Imperialist Forum. And that is, you use the term left, and that is in the same way that the elite ruling class, whatever you want to call them, that they have take some of the terms like imperialism, etc. The question becomes now, what's left? Because we now have people in America, like a Joe Biden, like many people, who are opposed to workers uniting, coming together and having trade unions, who are pro concentration of power, pro corporate leadership, pro all of the things that your traditional left espouses, the positions that who oppose viewing the world through the lens of economic class. But they call themselves lefts because of a couple cultural, whether it's the trans issue or they take some cultural issues that are worthy of discussion. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're worthy of discussion, but they take these issues and they redefine the left from traditional working class, union, trade union, etc. And they change it to the point where people have been confused and they're like, well, that person's on the left. And you're like, well, they're so far to the right of me, I couldn't see them if I had binoculars. No, they believe they're espousing the trans issue, whatever the case may be, things of that nature. Your thoughts on the redefinition of the left, and since you're working with the Anti-Imperialist Forum, what can we do to reclaim or refocus people to the traditional perspectives of what would be considered left-leaning politics, really worldwide?
Great answer Jyoti gives here. Here she goes.
So you're absolutely right to identify this. Obviously, I, as someone who's been working in this communist socialist movement for 30 years, have also been very aware of how this is happening. And actually, I always knew, because Marxism kind of makes it clear for people, and I am a Marxist and I study the works of Marx and Engels and Lenin to understand this world we live in. I think that they hold the key for us to understand what this struggle is all about. It's been very clear to me that this left-right spectrum that we're presented with has always been the spectrum of bourgeois politics. And
boom. The left-right spectrum is the spectrum of bourgeois politics.
Actually, real class, working class politics, the politics of representing the interests of the mass of working people, is not in that spectrum.
The politics of communism, the politics of the working class is not in the left-right spectrum.
And never has been.
And never has been.
So we have always had the Trotskyites presented as the far left. Well, yes, they are the far left of bourgeois politics. Actually, their politics is acceptable to the ruling class. That's why they get talked about. And people like me don't exist in the bourgeois media because we're outside. And I have stopped talking about myself, to be honest with you, as left-wing, a lefty, anything like that. I say I'm a socialist. I do working class politics. That is the politics of the masses against the politics of the bourgeoisie. I'm not here to play the game of bourgeois politics. I'm not a politician in that sense, and to me, it's actually been very helpful in clarifying that, because it was always true. It was always true, but now it's becoming so obvious that you can say it to people and they understand what you're talking about in a way where 20, 30 years ago, when you said it to people, they were like, oh, but I see voices of the left in the media and I see the broad spectrum of opinion. And now they realize that broad spectrum isn't a spectrum. It's just different ways of packaging. It's branding, different ways of branding the same program. And the program is, in your case, defend US imperialism. In my case, defend British imperialism, no matter what. And they have all these different ways of wrapping that up from far left to far right, but it's the same program. So yes, you're absolutely right that we don't identify ourselves with that.
That's a great answer. And Jyoti Brar is amazing. And it's really, really was an honor to have her at our conference because she really sums it up. And what you need to understand is that organizations like the People's Forum, their job is to try and channel genuine anti-imperialist energy and the actual energy of those who want to work in the interest of People's Korea and of the American working class that want peace into supporting the Democratic Party. And part of that is trying to wage a McCarthyist cancel culture campaign against anybody who doesn't go along with that, whether it's Jimmy Dore, whether it's Max Blumenthal, whether it's me, anybody. This is what they try to do, is that their job is to try and take people that are sympathetic to anti-imperialist and socialist states and attach them to wokeism and attach them to the Democratic Party. And it must be opposed. It must absolutely be opposed. You have to call these people out. You can't cooperate with them. There was a time where we thought we could go into their spaces and they would tolerate us. They won't anymore. They are at war with us. They are at war with us because they know that anyone who's ever been to North Korea or talked to the North Koreans wants people to talk like this. They know that real allies of North Korea talk this way and say things like this. That's what real allies of North Korea do. They talk this way. They say, finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. They celebrate that there was the beginning of peace. And they know that. They're frauds. They're frauds. Notatal, Betsy Young, these people are frauds. They're frauds. Their job is to confuse the working class movement, confuse the anti-imperialist movement, and try to somehow figure out a way to get people who would be anti-war, who would be anti-imperialist, to cheer when Tucker Carlson gets fired, or to cheer when the Uhuru movement gets indicted, or to join and stop Trump rallies to support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This is what you need to understand. This is what you need to understand. These people are agents. There's a reason that they get billions of dollars in funding. And there's a reason that the Uhuru movement faces criminal charges and gets indicted while they get fancy offices set up for them. There's a reason. There's a reason. What I've been trying to get you all to understand about the synthetic left is really important. It's really, really, really important because things are getting much more serious in the United States and the ruling class is on the defensive. And we need to struggle against these forces. We need to struggle against these forces. We need to organize. And we need to go lower and deeper to the real masses, as Vladimir Lenin said. These forces have made it abundantly clear they will not be friendly to us. They won't. You can't be a real anti-imperialist and work with these people. Ask anyone who's ever been in the PSL. Ask anyone who's ever been to the People's Forum. It's 2 seconds before they start calling you transphobic, before they start calling you homophobic, before they start calling you a racist. These people are loyal to wokeism and the Democratic Party. They are not loyal to anti-imperialism. And they have no principles whatsoever. There can be no negotiations with wokeness. We have to get out of the movement and to the masses. Because these people don't really want peace. They are Democratic Party activists. That's what they are. They are Democratic Party activists. And that is why they are doing everything they can to destroy the Center for Political Innovation. They want to destroy the Center for Political Innovation. And you know why they want to destroy us? Well, I think I still have the video here. I will show you why they want to destroy us. This is why they want to destroy us.
A year or so ago, the 4-point program made a lot of sense. Mass mobilization to rebuild the country, public control of banking, public ownership of natural resources, Economic Bill of Rights by Roosevelt. You don't need to be a communist to agree to them.
The protest was held in Times Square in New York City, and Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, mentioned it in a speech several hours after it happened.
Hoy ya en Estados Unidos hubo la primera marcha, la primera movilización en Nueva York. Allá.
I'm speaking on behalf of the Center for Political Innovation. I was sent here on behalf of Caleb Maupin.
The March 2022 conference featured a number of prominent social media personalities and was packed full of people. The website trutherfiction.com had to put up a page clarifying that the anti-imperialist gathering featuring the Soviet flag, the US flag, and the flag of the Donetsk People's Republic was indeed real and not an internet hoax. It's our own edition of the Green Book by Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. The CPI edition is the top-selling and top-rated version of the book on Amazon, and over 2,000 copies have been sold or distributed. CPI published the book Kamala Harris and the Future of America, an investigation into the woman who became the U.S. Vice President, which included her background and psychological profile. The book was widely reviewed in not only U.S. publications, but in print magazines in the UK and India. One of the main organizations that has worked against the Center for Political Innovation is the Communist Party USA. Ironically, CPI largely does the kind of educational work that the Communist Party fails to do. It is a well-documented historical fact that the Communist Party USA has been under the complete control of the FBI since at least 1958, if not earlier. Boris Child is the top FBI informant inside the Communist Party National Board, received the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his work controlling the Communist Party and using it to feed disinformation to the Soviet Union.
Sounds a lot like some other entities that currently exist in addition to the Communist Party. Sounds like something else.
CPI maintains that it is necessary to reinvent socialism and pull away from these forces. As Lenin said, we seek to go lower and deeper to the real masses. One point must also be made on behalf of the board of directors, and this is that Caleb Maupin is our ideological leader. CPI is the result of Caleb Maupin's vision for building an organization, and we recognize his unique approach to building 21st century socialism. Though CPI is much more than any one personality, we don't take for granted his pioneering efforts in understanding and applying Marxism, Leninism, anti-imperialism, and even Christianity. His place as our ideological leader and visionary shouldn't be understated, and we are proud that he has this place in our organization. Thanks, Caleb. If you feel you have a contribution to make, please join our organization. We will do our best to connect you immediately and put you to work. We want you to have a voice and we want to empower you.
So join the Center for Political Innovation, right? If you want to do real shit that isn't just shilling for the Democratic Party and lobbying for the Democratic Party, you ought to join the Center for Political Innovation. Because there is a reason that we have been so viciously targeted, and there's a reason that we've been able to accomplish so damn much in such a short amount of time. You look at what we've done. We've only been very active, extremely active for the past year or so. And in that time, we have done, past 2 years, we've done some amazing things. Right? We have accomplished so much in terms of what we've gotten done. And we're going to continue, and they won't be able to stop us. And they have hit us with everything, and we're still here. We are still here, and the Uhuru movement is honored is really appreciative of all the solidarity that we've done to support them. And, Tara Reid and Kim Iverson and Jimmy Dore and the Nick Brana of the People's Party and the Rage Against the War Machine. We have done so much. And we will continue to do it. We are a force to be reckoned with. And the reason that we are so viciously targeted is because we're not assets. We're not assets like certain organizations are. So I just wanted to make this clear. And I just hope that I used this recent incident to explain to you what's really going on, because we all need to be very clear about this. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, and I guess at this point, we'll do the roll call. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations, names and locations. I'll call you all out as I see you. And then from there, I'll start answering your super chat questions. Who is with us tonight? Who is with us? Who is with us? Names and locations. Who is with us? All right. Names and locations. We got Peter Santos in Boston. We got Killian in Milwaukee. Lawrence Johnson in Chicago. Chris in Salt Lake City. Nick in Montana. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Jonathan in Los Angeles. We got Phil in Miami. Christian in Bergen County. Temple City, California. John McCarthy in Chicago. Kieran from San Diego. Patch in Arizona. Tona in Tasmania. We got Forrest from Brownlee, England. We got David Rennie in Hamilton, Ontario. We got Cleveland, Ohio. Abel Malcolm. Heidi in Edinburgh, Scotland. Hi, Caleb Perth, now from Melbourne. This guy in Illinois. Auckland, New Zealand. Lionel in Melbourne, Australia. Abel in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Jenny Boris from Fremont, California. Ellie in Chicago. Ellie's with us. Gavin in Western Illinois. Love you, Gavin. I love CPI, says Peter Santos. Well, you better join. If you haven't joined already, Peter, we got to have you join. We need people to join. Jenny Lynn in Cincinnati is with us. For the people. Very, 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 very good. And feel free to join our organization. Brendan in Palo Alto is with us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We got Minden out of Midwest, Olympia Logic, beloved member of our group. Bob Troy in New York. We got somebody in Las Vegas. Shout out to you, somebody. We got Derek Johnson in America. Welcome, Derek. Anybody else? Names and locations, names and locations. Call you out as I see you. Names and locations, names and locations, names and locations. Names and locations. All right. Names and locations. I will call you out as I see you. Names and locations. Who else is with us tonight? All right. We got Briggy in Pennsylvania. We got Mark in Mission, Texas. Summit Against Hypocrisy from Canada. We got George from Detroit. We got Balthazar. Colin in Greensboro. Very, very good. Matt in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We got someone from Norway who's watching. Guzmund in Norway is with us. Jamie in St. Paul, Minnesota is with us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to have you all here, right? So glad to have you all here with us tonight. So I think tonight I'm going to do one of my famous musical interludes. This may not be the most popular music, but the music of Cornelius Cardew has a special, special place in my heart. And this song in particular, this is a classic communist song from the 1930s. It's in honor of Ernst Thälmann. Ernst Thälmann was the leader of the German Communist Party, and the Nazis arrested him and held him in prison. And so there was a global campaign to free Ernst Thälmann, the leader of the German Communist Party. This is the Thälmann song. It's the song that was composed to free Ernst Thälmann. So here you go.
Out in front, his fist was raised to strike them. Brigades were growing thick and fast to take the battle forward. The flag was red and the fight was on. For our sturdy comrade Thälmann, raise your fist. Sound the alarm, the phony court has sentenced him to perish. But when the people of the world rise up to liberation, we'll snatch the axe that falls on him. For our sturdy comrade Thälmann, raise your fist. Dimitrov was in just this spot. The traitors thought they had him, but news was spread at lightning speed, and world opinion freed him. The world awakes, indignation flames, for our sturdy comrade Thälmann, raise your fist.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the Ernst Thälmann song. That was fun. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. I hope you enjoyed our opening remarks. I hope you have sent an email to Miss Betsy Yoon. You know, we know what they are. They're not going to change their position because we send emails like this. Let's be real. They're not going to change their position. They're not going to, stop persecuting us and spreading lies. They're not going to stop basically accusing all CPI members of being sexual predators. But we need to send them emails to let them know we know what they are. We know what they are. We know they don't really support North Korea. We know that they're just agents of the Democratic Party. We know what they are. And there will be consequences at some point. There will come a time when we're ready that we will go on the offensive against these people. Won't be soon. Might be sooner than you think. We're going to go on the offensive against these people. These people that have gone out of their way to lie and pretend to be anti-imperialists when they're really working for the Democratic Party. These people who go out of their way not only to lead working class people and those who want peace into the hands of Joe Biden, into the hands of the Democratic Party, but furthermore, they go out of their way to try and destroy the lives and reputations of those of us who refuse to go along with their scam, with their hustle. There's going to be consequences at some point. At some point, CPI will begin to actively confront these people for what they have done. The people right now who are cheering for the Uhuru indictment, the people right now who are celebrating Tucker Carlson getting fired from Fox News, the people who cheer as AOC celebrates Tucker Carlson getting fired. We know who they are, and we're keeping track of who they are. We're keeping track of who these people are. We know who they are. And they may at some point try to scramble and change their position, but we know who these people are, and we're keeping track of them. We are keeping track of them. We know that No Detal doesn't really support North Korea. We know that now. We've proven it. We have written proof that they do not really support North Korea. We know that. And at some point, we will begin to mobilize against these people. And we won't give warnings about when that will be. It won't be anytime soon. But there will come a time when we will hold these people accountable. There will come a time when these people are trying to cover up their past, when they're backtracking and trying to claim, oh no, I didn't want to get Tucker Carlson banned. Oh no, I didn't celebrate when Uhuru got indicted. Oh no, I didn't spread false rumors about Caleb. Oh no, they're gonna backtrack, but we're keeping track. And there will come a time where all of their internet hate, and all of their cooperation with the U.S. deep state, all of their collaboration with the people who want World War III against Russia is going to come alive. What they thought was just some fun cyberbullying on their cell phones is going to be right in front of their faces. And they are going to shit themselves. They are going to shit themselves when they see that we are a real organization. And all the bots and all the Twitter boosting that they got, and all the pumping and promoting by the imperialists, and all the social media boosting they got from the FBI isn't going to help them. Because we're going to be real people. We're going to be real flesh and blood. What they thought was just this fun internet game is actually right in front of their faces and very scary. And I am very, very excited for when that day comes. And I will put a smile on my face. And, people remember. People remember. People don't forget things. People don't forget things. People remember. And I have a feeling there will come a time. There will come a time when people are desperately trying to apologize for some of their actions. Battle between good plus evil. It's really that simple. Very good. All right. So now I'm going to start answering super chat questions. If people have more super chats, by all means, send more super chats. I will answer your super chat questions. First of all, Max Blumenthal is a good guy. We like him. There was a little bit of confusion. We had to clarify something. That's the first super chat I've got, is someone asking about Max Blumenthal. We love Max Blumenthal here. He does great work. There has been some confusion at some points, but, overall, we like the work that he does. The same for his wife, Anya Parampal. She does great work. I retweet them. We really like the work that they do. And, they have been viciously canceled and demonized the same way we have. And we think it's really great that they promoted the Rage Against the War Machine rally. And, we wish them the best. So, and I would really ask, I think that chat was sent by somebody like Derek. Please don't drop in here with stuff like that. We really don't like that. When people come in here like, did you hear what Haas said? Did you hear what Hinkle said? Stop it, please. Right? It's bad enough that we have the synthetic left trying to get us all put in prison and kill us. Please don't try and incite people who agree against each other. There's a lot of disagreement among us, right? The internet is so good at trying to incite every little disagreement, every little petty personal grievance, and make it a big thing. So our request is that you don't try to make things worse, right? It is very hard to keep people together. And that is what we're about at the Center for Political Innovation. We're about building community. We have an organization of people. We have in real life conferences. We have seminars. We have weekend workshops. We're doing real stuff here. So if there's somebody who more or less agrees with us, who's promoting Rage Against the War Machine, who likes Jimmy Dore, you know, who likes Kim Iverson, you know, I mean, please don't jump in here and try to blow something up into something it's not, you know. We're not always going to agree on here. Disagreements happen, confusion happens, but please, our request is that, you know, unless things are really down and dirty and ugly, please don't exacerbate things. Our goal is to have unity. Look, if we hadn't gotten that email from Betsy, if Betsy had emailed me back and said, well, we don't agree with you, sir, but, you know, you want peace on the Korean Peninsula, and so do we. You know what we would have done? We would have gone to that rally and been nothing but polite and respectful. That's what we would have done. And they might have even chanted against Trump, and we would have just stood there with our banner politely. We want unity. These people don't want unity. They want unity with the Democrats, and they want to silence and smear and incite violence against everyone who disagrees with them. And let me add, you know, people. Let me add, I'm writing the super chat down. Let me add that people don't seem to realize how evil the synthetic left really is. For example, what is one of the main insults that the synthetic left uses? What is the main labels they try to tag on people? White supremacist. Now, there are white supremacists in this world. The Ku Klux Klan exists. Neo-Nazi groups exist. But there are very few of them. And actually, one of the main white supremacists, Richard Spencer, voted for Biden and is a huge supporter of the Ukraine intervention. Now, there are obviously various shades of opinion among white supremacists, but, you know, actual white supremacists do exist. Yes, but they're very few and far between. However, it is understood in leftist circles. There's a meme they share. The only good fascist is a dead one. And there is a belief that violence against white supremacists is justified. So the reason that PSL constantly tweets at members of the Center for Political Innovation that we're white supremacists, what they're actually saying is kill them. It is a threat of violence. And there's a reason that bread tubers have made huge videos trying to make the case I'm a white supremacist. They want to murder me. That is a call for violence. That is what it is. If you call someone a Nazi, that's a call for violence. Because if you read the other literature these people hand out, if you watch their other streams, they say that any violence against a white supremacist is justified. So if they're going around, as members of the PSL do, saying that all violence against white supremacists is justified, and then they call you a white supremacist, what they're saying is someone kill this person. All right? And that's what they're doing, right? They're trying to murder people. Whenever you hear any fake leftist call someone a white supremacist, what they're really doing is they are trying to tag that person. They are putting a hit out on that person. That's really what they're doing. You know, people get angry, you know, the Middle East, and they put out a fatwa. That's what they're doing. If you ever see that, you see the term white supremacist, white nationalist, if you see that label, you see that label thrown at anybody, you should understand what that is. That is actually a call for you to be murdered. It's a call for you to be murdered. They don't really think that I'm in the Ku Klux Klan. I think anyone who looks at the details of my life or my history knows that. What they are saying is Caleb should be murdered. And that's what they're saying to you, right? And they every single one of you watching this, you watch this, you're friendly with our community, you must be fascist adjacent, you must deserve to be murdered. That's what they're saying. They're calling for you to be killed. That is what all these people are doing. PSL is okay and basically wants to incite violence and murder against everyone watching this stream right now. You know? There you go. You know, and that's what you need to remember. So if you ever see that from a leftist, that's not an opinion. That's not a criticism of your views. If anyone ever calls anyone a white supremacist, that's a call for violence. That's what that is. And keep in mind, after January 6th, this is worth noting, after January 6th, all kinds of sweeping laws were passed to suppress protests, to make it harder to protest, to make the penalties for illegal protests much stiffer. And what was the response of PSL? Did they oppose it? No. They said that they didn't go far enough. Do you know what the laws they've used to go after Julian Assange are? They're the Espionage Act and the Sedition Act. Those are laws from the Wilson administration. Those are the laws that they used to imprison Eugene Debs, the great socialist leader. Brian Becker has called for invoking the Sedition Act against Trump supporters. I kid you not. On his radio program, he has actually called for invoking the Sedition Act against Trump supporters. So, I mean, they're basically calling for the Palmer raids against real socialists right now, right? If you are somebody who doesn't support Joe Biden, if you're somebody who doesn't support the crackdown after January 6th, if you're somebody who questions vaccine mandates, they want the FBI to drag you out of your house and put you in a prison camp, right? And I mean, go and read my article exposing the PSL on the failures of late Marxism. I mean, it is really shocking how much these people, are blatantly working for the establishment. Their criticism of the Democrats is that they haven't gone far enough. They didn't jail Donald Trump sooner. They didn't imprison vaccine critics sooner. I mean, that's what these people want. They want a low-wage police state. That is what they want. And these people are your enemy, right? I mean, they are your enemy. So you just have to remember that. And look, we've tried to be their friends. We have tried on so many different occasions to be their friends. They are not our friends, right? I'm on the Ukrainian government's kill list right now, and I'm also on their list. The day after Dari Dugina was murdered, Dari Dugina, a 28-year-old young woman who was the daughter of a very important Russian political scientist, was murdered. And did Ben Norton say, well, I don't totally agree with Dari Dugina, but this was a brutal murder? No. He just started tweeting about how much he hates Dugin. I hate Dugin. Dugin's fascist. Dugin's right wing. He just started tweeting like crazy about how much he hates Dugin. These people are bloodthirsty. And they're scared that their grift is going to be lost. Because right now, the American people do oppose war. Right now, the American people don't want World War III, but they ain't rallying around them to oppose it. They're rallying around Jimmy Dore. They're rallying around Tucker Carlson. They're rallying around Tulsi Gabbard. And their little grift, the gig the Democrats gave these people of being the stage managers of the anti-war movement, it's running out. The gig is running out. Brian Becker's protest hustle, his scam of getting people to think they're doing real socialist activism when they're actually working for the Democratic Party, his scam is running out. And pretty soon the Democrats are going to say, fuck it, Brian. All the anti-war people are supporting Trump. You're out of a job, buddy. They're going to lose their Goldman Sachs money. And that's what they're afraid of. They're losing the movement that they've been assigned to control is slipping beyond their control. Anybody with half a brain knows that what happened on June 30th, 2019 happened because of Donald Trump. Everybody knows that. Who was the president when this happened? Who was the president of the United States? Anybody who knows anything about North Korea knows that North Korea understands that this guy was friendlier to them. Everyone who knows anything about North Korea understands that. For some reason, Betsy in her email she insisted, no, we don't agree. We don't agree. We don't agree that it's because of Trump that this started. We don't want to finish what Trump started. No, it didn't happen. Didn't happen. And we think every member of your organization is a risk of sexual assault. You know, they won't be able to come to your rally without grabbing people's asses. You know, they're going to sexually molest everyone at the rally. That's what they said about our organization. You want to talk about a vile, nasty, hateful thing. These are evil people. These are very evil people. Give them a piece of your mind. Send them an email. Let them know how you feel. Right? Let them know that we're real. This is a real organization. You know, what they do is an internet grift. It's a woke grift. What we're doing is real. Okay. But anyway, we got a lot of super chats to get to. And if people have more super chats, by all means, send them our way. RFK is running in the Democratic Party, a huge mistake. All righty. All right. So yeah, and John also said Max has done great work on a number of issues. So the next super chat question we've got here, this is an interesting one, and I wrote it down, Gala. I'll get to that. This is an interesting one. Are there any leftist tendencies that support Pol Pot? Well, the answer to that is yes, actually. You know, you'll understand when did Pol Pot come to power? See, the annoying thing about Pol Pot, I always get really angry about this because when they're going on about how evil communism is, communism's so evil. Oh my God, communism's the most evil thing. Pol Pot, they never tell you. All you're supposed to know about Pol Pot is there was this guy in Cambodia who was a vicious, evil murderer. That's true. And his name was Pol Pot, and Pol Pot proves that communism's bad. That's all they ever tell you. Well, I would like you to actually know what happened with Pol Pot. And I believe I have a very good book here. The best book I have ever read on the topic of Pol Pot is called Kampuchea, the Revolution Rescued by Erwin Silber. And this book is a very good history of what happened with Pol Pot. Right? You have to understand, so China and the Soviet Union were at odds with each other. And the Soviet Union was the main anti-imperialist country. And China had been so isolated. Khrushchev cut off support to to China. China was isolated. So in about 1970, China started getting friendly to the United States because they had to be friends with somebody. Richard Nixon went to China. Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge came to power in Cambodia, and they were the China-aligned wing of the Cambodian Communist Party. There was also a Soviet and Vietnamese-aligned wing of the Cambodian Communist Party. And they started killing them, okay? And that they argued, China was arguing, they said the Soviet Union are the Soviet social imperialists. They're the main danger to the people of the world. And, you know, the Chinese argued that, and Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, they echoed that. They said that the Soviet Union were the main danger to the people of the world. The Soviet social imperialists were the main danger. And so Pol Pot and his allies began slaughtering the pro-Soviet wing of the Cambodian Communist Party, at which point the Vietnamese attacked Cambodia, intervened to try and rescue the pro-Soviet Cambodian communists. And then China invaded Vietnam to support Pol Pot. And we now know that Pol Pot was getting supported by the American government. The U.S. government was sending guns and weapons to Pol Pot. Pol Pot was being aided by U.S. imperialism. He claimed to be ultra-revolutionary, but he was getting support from China, and China was aligned with the United States. And on top of that, in addition to that, he was getting direct support from the United States. Pol Pot did receive U.S. backing. Now, there's also a very important book on this topic, which is very good, by the late Sam Marcy. And it's called Imperialism and the Crisis in the Socialist Camp. Because it talks about how the Chinese attack on Cambodia was done in coordination with the Carter administration. Jimmy Carter was on the brink of restoring relations with China and recognizing the People's Republic of China and withdrawing recognition from Taiwan. And it appears that the Carter administration was involved in, they were consulted with. China attacked Vietnam in consultation with the Carter administration. And this was very important. This was very, very important to remember. So at the time in the United States, there were a number of pro-China communist parties. And many of them did support Pol Pot because they were following Chinese foreign policy. The main, the biggest pro-China communist party was the Revolutionary Communist Party. Now, what's weird is the Revolutionary Communist Party, they had ended their support for China because they thought that that Deng Xiaoping had sold out, but they defended Pol Pot. And in fact, as late as 1997, there were articles in the Revolutionary Communist Party's newspaper defending Pol Pot. I'll link one right here. There's this article from 1997 by Mike Eli called "Straight Talk on Pol Pot." The Revolutionary Communist Party, the Bobavakian people, they defended Pol Pot. Straight Talk on Pol Pot. Mike Eli, August 10th, 1997. They defended Pol Pot. And here's a whole article you can read that they basically more or less say that, that Pol Pot was, not so bad. The Communist Workers' Party, which was a big Maoist group, they were involved in the Greensboro Massacre. They defended Pol Pot. And in addition to that, the October League, which was a big communist party that was aligned with China, they also supported Pol Pot because they took the position that that the Soviet Union was the main danger to the people of the world, and they saw that that Cambodia was aligned with China, and they saw that Cambodia was aligned with China, and because of that, they supported Cambodia, and also that, Pol Pot, his government, Democratic Kampuchea, they presented themselves as being ultra-revolutionary. They were the year zero, and they claimed they were going to have full communism in Cambodia without industrialization. So yes, those were three communist groups that I know of that defended Pol Pot. The other thing that's weird is Noam Chomsky defended Pol Pot for like 2 seconds, which is very weird. Noam Chomsky, he wrote articles defending Pol Pot, and for like a couple minutes after Pol Pot came to power, there were attacks by the right wing, by conservatives on Pol Pot, and Noam Chomsky wrote articles defending Pol Pot, and then he backed away from it. But yeah, there was and there's been a lot of people who bring that up when they're criticizing Noam Chomsky. They'll bring up that he defended Pol Pot for like 2 seconds and then stopped, right? And then he stopped. But for a minute, Noam Chomsky defended Pol Pot. Many people have pointed out, and this is not a defense of Pol Pot, because Pol Pot was a pro-U.S., was aligned with the United States. I mean, that's been proven now. The United States supported Pol Pot. That's been proven now. And the Soviet Union and the Vietnamese communists, they're the ones that got rid of him. So, anybody who frames, Pol Pot as being an example of how bad communism is, they really don't know what they're talking about. But the important thing to point out is that even all the horrendous things that Pol Pot did, the bombing of Cambodia and Vietnam by the United States killed far more people than Pol Pot ever did. There was millions and millions and millions of people killed by the United States in Southeast Asia. And so, even on the surface there, compared to the horrendous crimes of U.S. imperialism, Pol Pot's crimes were not as big. And now we know the United States was supporting Pol Pot. Pol Pot was receiving U.S. covert support. The U.S. imperialists supported him. So at this point, it's a moot point. I just wanted to get that out there. And I also want to mention this. 1978, the Kampuchea War happened. And there's a very famous quote that was quoted to me once from a Vietnam veteran, because 1978, you had the Sour Revolution in Afghanistan. And that was when Afghanistan, you had a pro-Soviet government come to power. And 1979, the next year, they reinstated the draft in the United States. So there were a lot of protests in the United States against reinstating the draft. And at one of these protests, there was a Vietnam veteran who got up and he said, they sent me to Vietnam to fight communists. They said I was going to Vietnam to fight communists. But now I look at Vietnam, I look at that part of the world, and what do I see? I see Chinese communists who are supported by America killing Vietnamese communists who are supported by the Soviet Union, supposedly to defend Cambodian communists, all because the Vietnamese communists are supported by the Soviet communists. And he says, sounds to me like I wasn't sent to Vietnam to fight communists. How did he put it? He put it more poetically. He said, they sent me to Vietnam to fight communists, but now we're backing Cambodian communists to fight Vietnamese communists because they're backed by the Soviet communists and they're fighting against the Chinese communists. Something like that. And if you looked at it, it was very clear that U.S. imperialism, and this is really important. The Pol Pot stuff is really important. Go read Revolution Rescued. Go read this book. And go read my new book, because I talk about this extensively in my new book. After the USA lost the Vietnam War, the strategy changed. You can divide the Cold War into the early Cold War and the late Cold War. In the early Cold War, it was capitalism versus communism. And that wasn't working for the U.S. imperialists. They killed millions of people in Korea, and they still got their asses kicked. They still got kicked out. They got driven back down to the 38th parallel by China. And people around the world condemned the United States. And McCarthyism became a disaster and started causing problems in American politics. The Vietnam War happened. The population was weary of it. You had an anti-war movement. So starting, especially after the USA was defeated in Vietnam, Zbigniew Brzezinski, who comes out of the Center of Communist Studies at Columbia University, he teamed up with Henry Kissinger, and they had something called the Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission was a think tank that was commissioned by the Rockefeller family to reinvent U.S. foreign policy. And starting really with the Carter administration, because Carter was, the first Democrat president that had come in since LBJ. U.S. foreign policy was reinvented to no longer be about communists versus capitalists, and to instead be very confusing. And that's what they did. And it was under the Carter administration that Euro-communism happened, where the main communist parties in Europe cut their ties to the Soviet Union, denounced the Soviet Union. That was because a lot of them were getting funding. And a lot of academics were getting covert support. A lot of the college professors that were in the French Communist Party and the Italian Communist Party, the Spanish Communist Party, were getting covert support from the U.S. government in the form of grants and research, funding, etc. And so you had the Italian, the Spanish, and the French Communist Party cutting their ties to the Soviet Union. You had the Kampuchea War, where the USA was supporting Pol Pot to fight against the Vietnamese. You had the USA establishing diplomatic relations with China. You had in African countries, Maoist communists in Angola fighting against Soviet-aligned communists. It was a strategy of making it very confusing, making it not clear whose side was on whose side. And this is a strategy of low-intensity warfare, counterinsurgency operations, the use of counter gangs, the use of different forces to muddy the waters. This is called fourth-generation warfare. And this is how the U.S. imperialists ultimately won the Cold War, is by muddying the waters and making it confusing, inciting communists against each other, funding some, manipulating others, making it so unclear what it was all about. That's how they won the Cold War. And nobody wants to talk about this. And that's why the work that I do is so goddamn important. The fall of the Soviet Union was a huge event in the history of communism. And no one has learned anything from it. And no one's learned anything from it, it seems. The fall of the Soviet Union should have been a huge moment for the communist groups of the world to go, why did this happen? And in response to the fall of the Soviet Union, most of the left, they responded with, well, the Soviet Union wasn't really socialist. Oh, well, the Soviet Union wasn't really so, or they needed more democratic reform, or they just tap danced around the issue. And they said, well, the Soviets were no good to begin with, so who cares? And then there was a minority of people that were, anti-revisionists. And they said, well, the Soviet Union, they needed to go back to Stalin. They needed to go back to Stalin's way of doing things. They deviated from true socialism. That's why it fell. And then you had Sam Marcy, the Workers' World Party, who said, well, socialist countries come and they go, but nothing really matters until we have a revolution in the Western countries anyway, so who cares? No one talked about why it happened. The Soviet Union fell because of manipulation of leftist politics. The Soviet Union fell because of the synthetic left. It fell because the global communist movement lost its bearings and got confused, and the imperialists were funding and confusing and manipulating the global communist movement. And the synthetic left, the hippie counterculture, sex, drugs, and rock and roll stuff, was a vehicle through which the global Marxist and communist movement could be confused. And nobody ever wants to talk about that. The Soviet Union became confused because global communism as a movement became tied in to the new left. And the new left was a U.S. intelligence operation. Read about MKUltra, read about the Congress for Cultural Freedom. Leftist politics got wacky and confused. A big layer of the Soviet Communist Party didn't believe in communism anymore. A left in the West was created that pretended to be the friend of the Soviet Union, but was going over there and feeding disinformation and causing them to be confused. The global communist countries got divided among themselves. It was a very sophisticated strategy. The Soviet Union fell because of manipulation of leftist politics. It fell because at the time that the Soviet Union fell, a big chunk of the Soviet Communist Party didn't believe in communism. And that's what he thought was better. He thought that'd be better. And no one wants to talk about any of this. Right? You generally get this vague, they got away from what Stalin wanted. Well, that's true, but they did it for a reason. You get this, they weren't really socialist, or it doesn't matter until we have world revolution anyway. No one wants to talk about this. Well, I talk about it. I wrote about it in my book, Where is America Going? I talk about all of this. You need to understand that the reason that leftism has gotten so confused, we've spent all this time on these lives talking about the confusion of leftist politics. That's why it's related to the fall of the Soviet Union. It's related to the weirdness in American politics. Tucker Carlson getting fired and all these people cheering for it. It all makes sense if you read what I write. Okay? I've spent years researching this. I've got a huge bibliography in this book. Conversations here that no one else is having. Globally, they're having these conversations. In China, they have big events, big conferences about why did the Soviet Union fall. But in the United States, all the communist groups are stuck in a rut. We're not. We are not stuck in a rut. We are having pioneering, groundbreaking conversations. Kim Iverson has highlighted this book. It's gotten amazing reviews. It was highlighted in Global Times, the theoretical newspaper of the Chinese Communist Party. Did an interview with me where they highlighted this book. Folks, I'm telling you, we're doing something really, really special. And that's why we're so viciously attacked. That's why people like agents like Betsy, what's her name? That's why they go out of their way to smear us. We are doing something really, really special here. We understand why the Soviet Union fell. We understand how they have covertly manipulated leftist politics. We understand the problem of the psychological manipulation, libidinal release, all of this. We understand this stuff. Other forces don't. And that's why what we're doing is so important. So go read my new book. Go read it for yourself. Come to your own conclusions. All right. Got plenty more super chats to get through. Tucker talked Trump out of bombing Iran, and Ben Norton talked people out of attending Rage Against the War Machine. Very well said. That's true. That is absolutely true. And, you know, the role of these Ben Norton people, there you go. Thoughts on the People's Party of Canada? I don't know enough about it. I know in Canada, the main social democratic party is called the New Democratic Party. And then there is the Communist Party of Canada, which I used to be friendly with, but then in response to the trucker convoy, they all lost their minds, just like the left over here lost its mind in response to Trump and had Trump derangement syndrome. The people had trucker derangement syndrome. So there you go. There you go. I don't know enough about the People's Party of Canada. How do we tell potential allies that aren't worth shit? Let me put it this way. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you say you are. Anyone can say they're a communist. Anyone can say they're a socialist. Anyone can say they're anti-imperialist. What matters? Do you support Julian Assange right now? That's what matters. Do you support the Uhuru movement right now? Do you support ending the aid to Ukraine? Do you support Facebook and Twitter censoring people, or are you opposed to it? That's all that matters. And if you look at every ideology in the United States, libertarians, Republicans, Democrats, liberals, leftists, they're all being divided right down the middle. Some libertarians support Assange and some don't. Some libertarians went to Rage Against the War Machine and some opposed it. Some conservatives want to jail Assange and some of them want to free him. Some conservatives want to send weapons to Ukraine and some don't. Where do people stand on the real issues? There's a low-wage police state that's unfolding right now, and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are marching it out there, and they're doing it in the name of stopping Trump, and they're doing it in the name of stopping Putin, and they're doing it in the name of wokeness and freedom and Russian meddling and whatever. And if you're for them, you're not our friend. And if you're against them, you're our friend. And I don't give a fuck. I really don't give a fuck. Who's a racist? Who's transphobic? You know, if you and I have a disagreement about issues of race and you know how things should be worked out, I can talk to you about that. But if you support Assange, I can talk to you about it. If you don't support Assange, I can't talk to you about it. You don't agree with me about the trans thing, which I don't take a decisive position on. I'm open to hearing both sides. I just believe I'm against bullying. I'm for caring for people. You know, I'm open to hearing different things about women's sports and stuff. I don't really take a decisive position. But if you have a different position than me and you support Assange and you support the Uhuru movement and you went to Rage Against the War Machine and you supported it, I can talk to you about it. But if you say Rage Against the War Machine was fascist and it was Nazi, it was a right-wing terrorist guy, I don't want to talk to you. What matters is where people stand on the issues. Anyone can say that they are anything, and it does not matter. I don't care if you say you're a communist, you say you're a libertarian, you say you're a Republican, you say you're a Democrat. Where do you stand? Are you for Assange or are you against him? Are you for the Rage Against the War Machine rally or are you trying to cancel it? Are you for the Uhuru movement and supporting them or are you against them? Tell me where you stand on the actual issues. That's what I want to hear about. Did you celebrate Tucker Carlson getting banned or did you oppose it? That's what I care about. I don't care about the other stuff. I really don't care about the other stuff. They are trying to shut down dissent in this country. They're trying to march us toward World War III. They are trying to imprison people for talking the way we talk. Are you for that or are you against it? And if you're for it, there's no reason to talk. If you're against it, have a different ideology, have a different perspective on socialism, I can talk to you. Are you for the low-wage police state or are you against it? That's what matters. And if people can't get that, they want to make it about, oh, blah, 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 blah. But what do you think about the history? What do you think about the Soviet Union? What do you think about? None of that matters. There's a war going on in this country between the woke fascists that want a low-wage police state and World War III against Russia and China. They want to shut down all dissent on Twitter and Facebook. They want to shut down all dissent in mainstream media. They want to jail Julian Assange and bury him under the jail. They support the FBI. Are you for that or are you against it? It's that simple. Are you for the low-wage police state or are you against it? Are you for Julian Assange or are you against him? And I don't really care about what you say you are. I don't about what your position on the history, how many Kim Il-sung hats you can put on. I don't care about any of that. I really don't care about any of that. I really don't care about any of that. Where do you stand on the issues before us right now? It's not about what you say you are. It's about what you do. All right. A battle between good and evil. It's really that simple. That's a really good way of putting it, Mariah. Can you provide a list of anti-imperialist politicians? No! The CPI is not a political party. And we seek to get 501c3 status. We do not have it yet. And because of that, we do not participate in elections. We do not endorse candidates. We do not campaign for anybody. We will not be rating candidates. We will not in any way participate in the American political process. We are an educational think tank. We educate people about anti-imperialism. We educate people about socialism. We give a platform to people like Tara Reid, to people like the Uhuru movement who are under attack, to people like Scott Ritter who've been marginalized and smeared. We do not participate in the political process. We don't campaign for any candidates. We don't endorse any candidates. And, members of our group are probably going to campaign for a variety of different candidates. There's some people in our group that really like RFK, some people in our group who don't. That's fine. We're not going to support or oppose RFK because that's not the role that we play. Some people in our group like Trump and are probably going to vote for Trump if he runs. Some people in our group won't. We are not involved in the American political process. We are involved in educating people about socialism out of the movement to the masses. That said, some of the best places to meet people are campaigns, right? A lot of the people who really want to change things are going to campaign for a variety of anti-imperialist candidates in the coming months. And our members will probably meet them at these campaigns, but that's not the same thing. We will not endorse any candidate. We will not support any candidate. We are an anti-imperialist educational think tank. All right. Next question. The irony is that Biden is a real white supremacist. Yeah, Biden opposed school busing, which was a big thing for white supremacists, the Boston racist riots. Biden was all about super predators and locking people up and the crime bill and all of that. Yeah, exactly. Tucker Carlson released a video on the Bird app. Do we want to find that? Do we want to play that on here? Maybe we'll play that another night. It's getting a little bit late. I'm getting a little bit tired. We're 2.5 hours into it. So yes, Tucker Carlson released a video. I saw some of it earlier. There you go. RFK is running in the Democratic Party. Huge mistake, says Gala. Well, he's not going to have a debate. There's not going to be a debate. The fact that Biden is even running again when the overwhelming majority of Americans don't want him to run again. He's picking Kamala Harris as his running mate, which the overwhelming majority of Americans don't support Kamala Harris. She's less popular than he is. And there won't be any Democratic primary debates. There won't be any debates. I mean, you know, if RFK ran for another party, he would probably get a chance to debate. If he ran as a Republican, they'd let him debate, for Christ's sakes. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that Biden even thinks he can run again with the poll numbers that he has shows that we live in a rigged system. Kamala Harris got less than 1% of the vote, and yet she became the vice president. She's one heart attack away from being president. Biden is so unpopular, and he's so damn old, and yet he feels like, hey, I'm just going to run again because, you know what? The system is so darn rigged, I can probably win it. And it looks like they're going to try to put Trump in jail to prevent him from running again. I mean, I'm just telling you, we don't live in a democratic system here. I mean, it's becoming less and less democratic every day. What would Sam Marcy think of PSL? Well, I wrote a whole piece about PSL. Let me just put it this way, right? Sam Marcy, the whole reason that Sam Marcy became a communist, one of the most defining moments of Sam Marcy's life. Sam Marcy, I believe, was born in 1911. When he was 6 or 7 or maybe even 8 years old, the Red Army, the Bolsheviks, rescued his family from the anti-Semites. The White Army was notoriously anti-Semitic. They would go into Jewish villages and kill everybody. And he lived in a small Jewish village in Ukraine. He remembers the day that the Red Army protected his village from the anti-Semites. That's the whole reason he became a communist. And now, the anti-Semites of Ukraine are being backed and supported by the American government. And Russia has sent its forces into the very regions that Sam Marcy came from to defend the Soviet World War II memorials from people who tear them down, to defend the legacy of the anti-fascist forces in the Soviet Union from the Azov battalion, from actual anti-Semites, from actual Nazis. Ukrainian Nazis tried to kill Sam Marcy and his whole family and his whole village when they were kids. And now Russia is sending its forces into Ukraine to protect the peoples of the Donbass from Ukrainian Nazis. And PSL is against it. PSL says, sure, NATO did a lot to provoke it, but oh, Russia, they shouldn't do that. I mean, is there anything more to say about it? And I will say this. You know, Sam Marcy was not perfect in a lot of ways, and I talk about that on my piece on him. I'm not a Marcyist. Marcy is a big influence on my politics, but he was wrong on a number of points. However, the politics, the political tactics that define PSL, which is whatever's trendy and hip among leftists, whatever the hip thing, the trendy thing among liberals to do is we get the permit, we set up the stage, and we try to be the stage managers of it. That strategy did not become the Workers' World Party strategy until the mid-70s. And who's to say that if Sam Marcy had just continued living indefinitely, he wouldn't have reinvented their tactics. He wouldn't have said, out of the movement to the masses. And I want you to read. If there's any piece by Sam Marcy that is worth reading, it's this one. It's posted on the CPI website. Getting me emotional a little bit. Go and read the letter that Sam Marcy wrote to the workers of Louisiana. In the early 90s, David Duke, an actual white supremacist, was running for governor of Louisiana. And Sam Marcy wrote a letter to the workers of Louisiana urging them not to vote for David Duke. And what did that letter say? Did it say, oh my God, you're racist. You're a whole bunch of racist scum? No. Go and read how Sam Marcy spoke to poor white workers in the South who were thinking about voting for David Duke, go and read the arguments that Sam Marcy made and the way he appealed to them on a class basis and said, David Duke is not your friend. He said, I understand why you might want to vote for David Duke. Because the government's against him, because your employers are against him. And he explained patiently. Thousands of people received this letter. It was given to them. He explained why it was not in the economic interest of workers in Louisiana to vote for David Duke. This letter, this is how communists talk to people about racism. This is how communists talk to people about these kind of things. Go and read this letter. And ask yourself why PSL would expel somebody for writing a letter like this. PSL would expel somebody for writing a letter like this. The Workers' World Party of today would expel somebody for writing a letter like this. But this is how you fight racism. The greatest cure for racism in American history has always been the picket line. Getting people to see their common economic interest. What is agrarian communism in the 21st century? All right. I wrote it down. But anyway, the next question, do you have any Soviet books or texts that make statements on Deng Xiaoping? And I think the person asked specifically about statements about Deng Xiaoping on his market reforms. I don't. There are some. There are probably some old Soviet textbooks. The Soviet Union got to be very critical of China in the late 70s and up into the 80s. They were speaking very, very critically of China. But I do have this. I think I have, yes. I have the Gus Hall bibliography. Gus Hall was the leader of the American Communist Party. I have the Gus Hall bibliography, and there's an article in here about Maoism, if I'm not mistaken. That's like reprinted in the bibliography here. Maoism, the Great Betrayal of the Chinese Revolution. Yeah, 154. And I mean, this was the Soviet position. I mean, they viewed China as aligning with the Soviet Union, or aligning with the U.S. imperialists against the Soviet Union. The article was published in 1979 when Deng Xiaoping had just come to power. Maoism, the Great Betrayal of the Chinese Revolution. And it talks about the Kampuchea War, and it talks about Deng Xiaoping, market reforms, and, yeah, there you go. Yeah, Maoism, the Great Betrayal of the Chinese Revolution. And that was the Soviet position. He says, Maoism, a Confucian legacy, the irrationality of great power chauvinism. This article goes on for pages and pages. It's pretty intense. Yeah, I mean, it's lessons of Maoism for the revolutionary movement. This is like a long ass rant against Mao Zedong thought. Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to, this article, you go read the Gus Hall bibliography, and there is an article in here, Maoism, the Betrayal of the Great Chinese Revolution, that it's just a rant against Deng Xiaoping and etc. So there you go. And a rant against Maoism. It's a long critique of Maoism by Gus Hall. So I do have that. What is agrarian communism in the 21st century? Good question. Good question. I mean, obviously, food, agriculture is important, right? I mean, growing crops, rural areas exist and all of that. But agrarian communism as a concept, my understanding of that is that would be, that would be people who argue you don't need industrialization, that on the basis of an agrarian economy, you can have full communism. And that sounds like a degrowth thing. That sounds like a hippie degrowth thing. And I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. I don't know. Is there more to it than that? The agrarian question, do you have private ownership of land? Do you have collective farms? Do you have state farms? This is something socialist societies have wrangled with. The Soviet Union, they nationalized all the land during the war, communism, during the Civil War. Then they redistributed and privatized land during the new economic policy. Then they built the collective farms during the Soviet period. How do you handle the agrarian question? They have largely private farms in China now, but that may be correct, right? It may be the best thing, right? These are strategic questions that in a socialist society, you have private ownership to some degree or other. You have collective, cooperative ownership, and you have state ownership. The point, what makes it socialism, is that the economy overall is forced to work in the interest of the public. Profits are not in command of production. Production overall is controlled by society. However, some of that production may go on in private enterprises or in collective cooperative enterprises or in state enterprises. And finding which mixture will be good is the job of a socialist government. They have to constantly be figuring out which do we want. But the point is to unleash growth. The whole point of socialism is to unleash growth so we can get to that ultimate stage of communism, a stateless, classless world of vast material abundance where inequality can fade away because so much wealth has been created. Karl Marx makes that clear in Critique of the Goethe Program. The goal is a world with so much wealth in it that there's no need for anyone to work. People just work because they feel like it. Labor becomes life's prime want, no more a necessity. A world where people can just take what they need and do what they feel like doing. No coercion, no social hierarchies, from each according to their own ability to each according to their needs. And that requires vast abundance. It requires eliminating scarcity, eliminating poverty. And that is the goal. So if you're anti-growth, you're against growth, or if you say wealth is bad, abolish billionaires, you have no idea what communism is about. Communism is not against wealth. It's against exploitation. It's against the irrationality of the market. But communism is all about growth. It is about letting humanity soar to new heights beyond the irrationality of the market. And on that note, folks, I'm going to put on the closing music and say good night. It's been fun. But I'm going to say good night for now. In the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.